key pressure for me as a head teacher, if I look at all of the things that are pressures, the key one is whether or not people will like me and like the values that I'm representing and the direction I want to take the school. That is a pressure because it's very isolating to feel that you've got a set of beliefs that you're trying to promote in school and you're trying to tell people where to go or what to do or how to do it. Dispersed or distributed leadership takes the pressure away from me because if I am able to share a belief with a wider group, I don't have to worry anymore about whether they like me and my set of values because I've overcome that hurdle by sharing the beliefs and values, thrashing them out and discussing them. So we are working in a much more united way.
Words, not just the words on that sheet.
It's very hard to go to
Brian relieves his work pressure with distributed leadership, but can it be of use to other head teachers and senior managers? At a head teachers networking meeting, he discusses how it can be made to work and some potential pitfalls to look out for.
Have a lot of the pressure taken off you.
It's impossible as a head to say you can lead and know everything. And I've said to my staff, everyone in the school can lead and manage areas of school life better than me.
But how far can you go down the route of saying, well, you can do this better than I can within the school, you can do this better than I can within the school. You've got to be a very confident person to turn around and say, well, that's okay, I can live with that, I can go home at night and feel comfortable with that. Or you go home at night thinking, as you might be going to say, I'm redundant here.
Yeah, exactly.
As a head, and you don't want to be redundant, but you do want to have a lot of the pressure taken off you.
My role is almost like an accountability role. I take what they're doing and discuss with them and put it up against what the vision, if you want to call it that, for the school is.
So what you're saying basically then is you've got to have a clear grasp of the vision.
Yeah.
I think one of the qualities that you obviously need in distributed leadership is to be a good delegator. And I think over the years that's one thing that I personally have found it very difficult to do. Delegating to certain members of staff knowing that it may not go the way you want it to. And it's a risk that you've got to be able to take, and you've got to be brave enough to take that risk and just pass it on. And I'm not sure that all heads have actually got that within them naturally, and it's something I think we need to work at.
The leadership and management structure in this school was very traditional when it first started. We had a head teacher and some teachers with limited responsibility, and it was very much a traditional pyramid shape. Latterly, I decided to flatten that pyramid shape and disperse or distribute the leadership across a wider group of people on the basis that if we do that, we all have areas of expertise that we can be much more successful in than each other. It's a great relief and release as a head teacher to go to somebody and say to them, you tell me, you advise me on this. Although as the head, you're always still in charge of that decision-making ultimately.
Oh, that's She's good. Absolutely excellent.
That's good. Initially, the structure change from a traditional mould was in terms of spheres of influence. So we had an admin sort of sphere that cut into everything, the leadership sphere in terms of management and organisation of the school and the curriculum, and then the pure teaching and learning sphere. And all three of those cut into each other because they all mutually support each other. You can't lead the curriculum if you don't organise the structure of the school and have admin to back it up. So each person operating in those circles had to interface with each other. Since then, we've progressed further and introduced wider leadership groups and individuals. The structure at the moment is a head teacher, 2 assistant heads, a senior administrator who's part of the leadership team and meets with us regularly. We have the special needs coordinator who is a senior teacher, she's part of that team. Then at another level, you have teaching and learning responsibility posts, and those people are responsible for key cross-curricular areas and the leadership of a combined year group.
Jonathan and myself are the assistant heads. We support Brian and he supports us with our workload. So if we're feeling busy and if he's feeling busy, we kind of can sense it and we can pick up work from one another. And if someone hasn't sensed it, it's so easy to say, Eek, I'm busy and I need you to take this from me. We have our team leaders and they lead 2 year groups each, and they are very flexible people who are used to taking on additional tasks when things get busy. And when we were appointing those team leaders, that was a very strong consideration for us, that they needed to be flexible and they needed to be able to sense when things need to be delegated and when we need to kind of move jobs around the school. And they're very good at that and they're very supportive. So that's where dispersed leadership works incredibly well.
Yeah, initially in my role, I found it quite difficult because I am working in a team with 2 assistant heads. So it's kind of hard to find your role. But what helped me in that was the head teacher providing middle management training, which clearly defined what our roles were. And although it's been very gentle, I feel that we've built quite a good foundation, and I'm feeling that now they're 2 very separate roles between myself and assistant heads.
I'm a Year 3-4 team leader, and my responsibility for my team would relieve that pressure from Brian, because then instead of him having to deal and work with maybe 5, 6, 7 teachers, I can communicate in smaller groups with them and then feed back to him, so he has a more personal touch added to discussions with me, and then I can filter through from the head teacher.
The benefits of working in smaller groups really is that you've got your finger on the pulse in lots of different areas. It stops the cliqueiness amongst people. There's always someone in there very quickly to sort out the problem, get back to the head, and less negativity and more positivity.
Communication in this structure can be a pressure upon the head. This is not only to keep tabs on who's talking to who about what, you need to know who's working on what project, how they're doing it. And have you got a supply teacher now for whole day?
I've got some TLR stuff I can do.
So the people in the school generally, but the leadership team specifically, know they can come to me at any time and say, have you got a minute, I need to talk to you about so-and-so and so-and-so.
You have to have many more conversations, and communication has to be excellent. But a way that you can get around that is by being much more rigorous, much more focused in your meetings, because when you do have the chance to get together, you have to say everything.
Although I've talked about a flattened or a squashed pyramid, the structure does need to be flexible because different demands arise at different times. An example would be at this point in the summer term, early in the summer term, we need to make decisions about which teachers are going to be where and which teaching assistants are going to be with them. Now, I can make that decision alongside the colleagues in the leadership role in a dispersed or distributed way much more easily, with a feeling that people are invested in it because they've been part of it, rather than just announcing late in the term to all the teachers, this is where you will be. You can't do that across the board. You cannot consult everyone, but you have to consult a wide enough group to develop a feeling of security and a core security within the school, so that any challenge that comes can be explained in a rational and fair way by a group, rather than just saying, I'm the head, it's my decision. There are times when an authoritarian method is the right choice. There are times when you have to say, this is where we want to go, and this is the way we're going to do it. Not everybody may want the decision you make or agree with the decision you make, but sometimes you must do it. So it is a pressure to be authoritarian. You have to handle it afterwards, after you've made decisions. You have to go to places where perhaps you least want to be and work alongside those colleagues who have perhaps not agreed with your decision, but you have to do it if you want the school to carry on in the direction you want it to go. Empowering people can have significant implications if, by empowering them, their understanding of protocols and the correct way to treat each other and behave is blurred. If in making a decision about the structuring of staff in school or practical arrangements in school, if somebody were to disagree with that, then On occasions, the empowering approach in school or the distributed leadership approach may mean that they voice an opinion which is not acceptable in certain circumstances or in large groups. So it's wise, really, in your attempts to distribute leadership, empower as many people in school to feel secure with the knowledge that ultimately you can take it back to a more formal approach, a more authoritarian approach. That is your security. If you aren't careful in establishing core values, shared beliefs, and ensuring that the people you want to work as part of your team are really taking those ideas on board, and if you don't provide them with a reasonable structure through which they can communicate and make things happen, then what I think you run the risk of ending up with is people who have listened to an idea but not really taken it on board and don't understand it inside. So that when you ask them to work taking on leadership issues or new roles, they tend to return to you more frequently than you want them to, asking for the next step or asking to be guided. That's not saying that that shouldn't ever happen, and not saying it doesn't happen a lot, but there's a difference between people asking for a bit of advice because their ideas are developing fast and people asking to be told what they should do next in a much more of a puppet sort of a fashion. If I was giving advice or tips to anyone on working with the idea of distributed leadership, I would say be very clear in your mind what you want to achieve in your school and break that down into the key areas that might be led by different individuals. Once you've got that structure and plan in your mind, then the next step, the crucial one, is look very carefully at the people in your school, cultural architects, movers, drivers, whatever you want to call them, doesn't matter what the term is. And those are the people you need to place in the key positions. You've got to look for key qualities in those people of enthusiasm, the desire to improve children's learning, the wish to work cooperatively and with integrity with other members of staff, and also a wish to learn. Those people have to be key learners themselves.
I came to the school as a class teacher, and very soon afterwards Brian had approached me to suggest that I might do other things in the school and I might take on senior roles in the school and join the leadership team. And I did resist, I have to say, for quite a long while because my heart was in the classroom. And I wanted to be with the children 100% of the time, but I have taken on board everything that he said to me, and that has resulted in me really changing my mind about things and really enjoying the leadership opportunities that he's given me.
The personal issue of pressure in school for me would always come back to believing and feeling that I'm doing the right thing or the best thing and having high enough expectations and standards. Distributed leadership helps me with that, because if I can go to other people, talk through ideas, be challenged and offer challenge and measure and compare expectations, then I gain a lot of strength from knowing that if we take a step forward in a certain area, I've got other people who have thrashed that out with me, and sometimes they're taking the step forward, sometimes I'm taking the step forward, but I feel much more secure knowing that I've had the opportunity to make comparisons.